just to stay on the psychology theme, because um, coming at it from a communications angle, I think that we have to be careful when words are thrown about, because someone else might use a word that we assume we know, we think that it's the same definition, and it's not.
Hmm.
Again, using your words, open concentration camp, apartheid state, ethnic cleansing. These are triggering words to get any moral person to respond. They're so triggering that if you don't respond in a moral way, it says you almost feel like you're immoral. But
Yeah.
but we need to slow down and ask, well, how do you know there's ethnic cleansing? Where are you getting the facts from? How do you know it's an apartheid state? Are there slaves? How do show us, like, ask questions and really understand, like, open concentration camp.
Hi everyone, this is another episode of Golda's Girls, and today I am here with Leah, my co-host, who is a speech therapist and a communication coach, and I am a psychologist and relationship coach. And we are going to talk today about
We're talking about why the people in the West love to demonize Israel.
yes, indeed. There's a lot to
Heavy
say about
topic.
it. Yeah.
Heavy topic, but it's time we discussed it. Let's start with my first question. Why is it that people, especially in Europe and the West, find it necessary or feel the need to compare the IDF with the Nazis?
I think it's totally subconscious. And I will explain that why. I'm from the Netherlands and I had those questions during my high school years and after that in college, etc. There was already heard the blame Israel's like Nazis. There were really weird things said by people that I was wondering, why is that? And when Israel in 1967 won that war, attacked by five surrounding countries, people in Holland, a lot of people were dancing in the street. In 1973, with the oil crisis, so it was already much less love for Israel because the oil crisis was, of course, it was cold. And so we had cold winters, and the hearts also grew cold because of that. So if you go back, why it is a bit that they were dancing in the streets in 1967, it was exactly 20 years after the war, the Second World War, that slowly had become clear that 6 million Jews were murdered and how much the Netherlands had collaborated. It was also hard to hide Jews in the small homes that usually people have, but there was a lot of betrayal and collaboration. Now, if you realize that 90% of the Dutch Jews have been murdered with cooperation and collaboration of Dutch people, that creates shame with people with a good conscience, honest people, nice people, right? The same you have in Germany, the same you have in every European country where people have collaborated with the Germans, which all countries did, right? And the Jews in Germany could barely escape because there was no country willing to take them in, especially after 1938. And what happens if you are, as a collective, as a group, as a country, are responsible for such a thing? That, like, for instance, Germany, there is a lot of shame with the good people and also blame for what happened. And shame and blame are actually vibrationally spoken, energetically spoken, the lowest energy, the lowest emotions to feel. Shame goes very, very deep. Nobody likes shame. Now, Germany has done their best to get their act together and take responsibility for all the crimes. For a big part, of course, not entirely, but they have done their best, at least certain people, right? So it is a collective feeling of shame that Germans have. And interestingly enough, in the Netherlands, which is next door, we have a long border together. They feel better because they were not actually the bad ones like the Germans. That was the way I was raised, not by my parents so much. I mean, we didn't go on vacation there, of course, but they were also guilty. But the borders make it differently. It came from Germany, so they're the bad guys. And the Dutch people had also kind of consciousness that they felt really guilty. And there was a lot of discussion in the 50s and the 60s when it became more clear. It was not clear right away when some people came back from concentration camps. It became not, everybody was licking their own wounds. We had a winter that people didn't have food. 100,000 people, Dutch people died from hunger, in addition to 100,000 Jews that were murdered. Two different stories, right? So there are many, many horrible stories. Now, to feel guilty, even if you're born after the war, you feel kind of guilty because you're from that group. Like I said, in Germany, it's stronger, but in the Netherlands, there is also like, wow, that was terrible. What happened? We let them down. We let the Jews down. And there are a lot of books written about it, a lot of videos, a lot of conversations. And then in the 70s, when I went to, in 80s, when I went to college, I was attacked too, out of the blue. You know, you see Israel's doing the same. They're Nazis. Apartheid story came up thanks to, I think, Yasser Arafat. All kinds of words that had not really to do with the truth, but words that were used that are, and you see that even more today, that were used in the Nazi era. Now, the whole story with Nazis doesn't go together because Nazism wanted to eliminate the Jews, taking all their businesses, taking everything they had, and at the end killing them to get rid of the Jews in the world. That was Nazism. In Israel, the IDF is not wanting to get rid of the Palestinians on itself. They only defend themselves. Israel defend forces. So there is no ideology. It's the opposite ideology. Israel has offered several times, please take your own piece of land and make it a state. What they did with the Gaza Strip too. And today we realize that so many people do not know the history, do not know the facts, don't take the effort to read it, to learn it, to deepen themselves. And they echo all the lies and all the stuff. Now we can break that down in pieces. But why we started to talk about this, Leah, was what happened to Bessel van der Kolk, a psychiatrist that is Dutch, right? And he has been uninvited because of anti-Semitic remarks. Now, a psychiatrist that calls himself an expert in trauma, which I wouldn't deny because his book, what is his book, The Body Keeps the Score, is interesting and it's kind of,
which I have.
yeah, me too. And it's kind of a good way for, in my opinion, that psychiatry goes to not only to the pills, but also looking deeper at it. But then going back to the collective consciousness, what I was speaking about, for a psychiatrist that calls himself a trauma expert to use terms like the IDF is like Nazis, that is such a stupid remark because it is totally not true. It is a bad comparison because it is not a true comparison. I just explained that. It comes from also he wants to get rid of that collective feeling of guilt. I think he's born in the 50s, in the early 50s. I have looked at his parents. I have my ways for research, right? I didn't find anything that they were in supporting, that they were helping Jews
Resistance.
or that they were in the underground, nothing. So yes, latent, dormant anti-Semitism for sure was in the Netherlands, was not as horrible as maybe in Germany or in France or in Belgium. The same. There are many people have crazy ideas about Jews. When I was 21 and I was in a conservatory for my first career, becoming a flutist, classical flutist, one of my best friends said to me, Carla, you're the first Jew that I meet, and you don't have those negative traits. Now, that is typically an example of what runs in families of judgment about Jews without ever knowing Jews and thinking those negative traits. So this is such a good example how it works. So the anti-Semitism is dormant with so many people. You see it today in America too. We had expected that there would be such a wave and explosion of anti-Semitism as we had today, but it runs through families worse than we see. Now, going back to Bessel van der Kolk, if a trauma therapist speaks like that, and why do you want to compare that? If you say, I do not like what the IDF is doing, to my opinion, they could be better do such and such and such, I would say, okay, great. That is an intelligent response. Go to Israel, go to tell them. If you have a solution, go. But to say here in colleges and to audiences, the IDF is as the Nazis, which is totally a wrong comparison to begin with, but I just explained. but also it's not serving the truth. And in the second and the third, it is also true that comparisons never serve the truth. It's like comparing apples, not even with pears, but with berries. It's nothing in comparison, only to make a point. Why does he say it? Why does somebody say this? That is, he wants to hurt the Jews and tell them, hey, you're as bad as the Nazis were, or my family, of the Dutch people. So then we are finally done with feeling guilty and feeling shame about the Shoah, the Holocaust. That is what I noticed for years in my 20s and 30s with remarks of friends and people because I was quite vocal about those things and involved. And that is, people don't want to feel guilty. People don't want to feel shame. And then it's like, okay, we're even. We behave bad. We say, "Yeah, true. I don't think that he liked the Holocaust, even though he doesn't like Jews so much, but doesn't want to croak. But we are like even. My ancestors have not done anything, not didn't help or didn't do whatever, or did the wrong things. But you know what? The victims see how bad they are. It's the same thing like a girl that is raped while she's walking normally on the street. It's her own fault because her skirt is too short. I mean, this is the same way of thinking. If a psychiatrist that is internationally known and respected talks like this, disgusting. What do you think, Leah?
I agree. I agree. I think that I know in Judaism we have a concept of when we've harmed somebody, we atone for it. And we, first of all, apologize, and then we do something to rectify the situation so that we don't have to carry it forever. Because it's not healthy to carry shame forever. It's not a healthy thing. Now, I'm not a psychiatrist, but I can tell you from my own life, it's not healthy. And he should have taken his own medicine, is what I'm thinking. If he had really done his amends, he wouldn't be so consumed. He would have found some peace. If he had tried to help Israel in some way, or take some responsibility for his ancestors in any way, putting out a statement such as like to the effect of, that I'm truly ashamed of that the cooperation that we gave to the Nazis, or something like that. Maybe early on, it sounds like he hasn't done his own healing,
Yeah,
and
me
that's where
too.
this projection came from.
That sounds very interesting. And that is often the
Yeah.
case with people that rise very quickly and they get like adored, adored by their followers. And oh my God, the success is getting so well that it's like, where is humility here? Where
The
is,
other, yeah, sorry.
no?
The other thing is that, if you're a specialist in one area, sometimes you're arrogant enough to think you can be specialist in another area. This is not his area. He should stick to his own area, trauma, and not Jewish history or Israeli history. He doesn't know damn anything about Israel to say this. It's an ignorant statement. By definition, it's false. There's nothing. The IDF is one of the most, it has the lowest, what is it, mortality rate per um, combat, or forget the exact term, but they do everything. They drop leaflets. I mean, it's the last thing. There is, and here's the real, to me, a criteria of the Nazis. It's the degradation that the Jews faced. It was on purpose and intentional. They weren't just killed. There was a systematic degradation to make them into non-humans, to take away their
Yeah,
humanity. They
the
didn't just take away their life,
Untermenschens.
they took away their humanity first. And IDF does not do this. And this is the biggest, to me, the biggest difference. There are going to be collateral damages because Hamas decided to initiate a war. That's where we're at. Period. If Hamas didn't want Palestinians killed, they should not have attacked. That's it.
That's
Okay?
where the responsibility is. Yeah,
Well, I mean, but who now he's become a specialist, Pastor Van der Kolk?
yeah,
What?
yeah.
It's ridiculous. He should stick to his own, patience and in his practice, and that's it.
And not
And
only that,
it's
Leah,
just
because it
evil.
is for any Jew, or yeah, in this case, for any Jew, not a safe situation to get into therapy with somebody like him, as are so many in the US. I mean, we just read that article, right, about that the American mental health system is overruled by anti-Semitism, therapists that have all kind of opinions. And the more negative the opinions that people have, that the less they usually know about the history.
Right.
That's not only the European history of Jews, but in general, how Israel was. or how Israel was established, how Zionism, where it came from. It's already 2,000 years old, right? We see it every time it's Passover next year in Jerusalem. It is people that know, even Muslims that you and I know, and other people. No, they say, yeah, it is Jewish land, and that is also in the Quran. Today, with all the information and all the lies, it is very disheartening how many people embrace the lies, take it over without critical thinking, and come with all this harsh stuff. And of course, Dr. Bessel van der Kolk apologized and came with a beautiful statement from probably AI generated.
Yes.
So insincere. And it's like, oh, guy, you missed the money from this, your reputation. But coming back, for me, that's why I started to speak about it too, because I read about it in remarks about it in someone else's article. I recognize the way of thinking how I saw it in the Netherlands. You are tired of feeling shame, and it. I have heard it from what were very close friends to me, very close friends that said it's now enough, and it was in the 80s. Can we not talk about the Holocaust anymore? It's so long ago. It's over. People just don't understand how deep that trauma went, how what an impact it has, the whole systemic and the systematic way of how Jews were slowly put together, became segregated. I think most American people, including a lot of Black people, Afro American people, do not know how segregated intentionally Jews were in the 1930s and 40s. How specific that whole what say everybody need to go out of their house to Amsterdam. It was all written down where everybody lived. It was such a genius, and you were not allowed to go to a park, to a swimming pool. You were not allowed to take public transportation. You could not do shoppings in non-Jewish stores. The list is endless. And that whole machine has put a lot of shame to many people that say we haven't stand up. We haven't stand up. We didn't stand up. That shame and guilt, I go back there again. Um, it took like until maybe 2010 that the transportation, the public transportation of the train started publicly to apologize that they freely had transported Jews to the death camps with the train.
In the Netherlands?
Yeah,
I didn't know
2010,
that. Was it Osterberg?
2010. Huh?
Osterberg? Was it Osterborg?
No, 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 Westerbork. No, no, no.
Westerbork, I'm
The
sorry.
train system in the trains in Holland, they wanted that the Jews bought their own tickets to be transported to the deportation camp Westerbork, and from there they would have the train to Auschwitz. And it was not a train, it was cattle wagons where they were pressed and half of them died, you know? But it took 60, 70 years, 60 years before that the train transportation as an organization, as a corporation, publicly apologized about how they let their Jewish land, the Jewish citizens that often lived there for 500 years already since the Portuguese and the Spanish expulsion. So there's always an art that hasn't been given back and all that kind of stuff. It has always been a conversation in the society. I think Holland went in a very good way about it by looking inside, self-reflection. We have done this, we have done that wrong. So there was a lot of that. But again, it is an uncomfortable feeling and you want to get rid of it. So let's blame the victim. Then I feel better. Oh, you see, I heard
Goes
that.
away.
I
Goes
heard
away.
that. Oh, you Jews do that. So what do you dare to say about us? That kind of things. Now, Bessel van der Kolk, as a psychiatrist, must know more about the subconsciousness because Freud is the father of psychology, psychiatry in a way, modern psychiatry. He doesn't know that. He has indeed, as you said, Leah, he hasn't done his own healing work. And it is for many people the case because what shocks me today is the eagerness. So many people love to hate and believe stuff, and they are advocating it like they are the best advocates. I understand if you see daily in the news what happens a lot in Holland, going back there, I hear from my friends, what is in the news, you see all the things like about the Palestinian areas. You hear the figures of Hamas about the death, which is totally exaggerated. There is no
Mhm.
desire for many people, I think, still from that collective consciousness, there's no desire for to go for the truth. It helps them to feel better about themselves when you see, oh, you see what these effing Jews do or Israelis do. And it is with the terms they use, Nazis, the terms they use about apartheid. We have had so many people from South Africa that know what apartheid is, looking into it, and they say, no, this is not apartheid. How can a country be apartheid, called apartheid state, if in the Supreme Court is an Arabic judge? How can it be if like almost 50% in Israel, the pharmacists are Arabs, which we can call Palestinians or Arabs, whatever. This is so ridiculous. And you know what? They run with it. Same
How
with it.
about
Yeah,
this one? How about this picture? This is Israel. It's up here.
yeah. Then the
How can
Greenland.
this be a colonizer? Look at the map. It's
Yeah,
800 times.
yeah,
There's
yeah,
13 Israels that fit into California alone. How
yeah,
is this possible? Does the word match the picture?
yeah, yeah.
Nope.
In addition to that, when Jews came there, they bought pieces of desert, swamps, and when they in the 1850s and 1860s, 70s, Jews fled from Russia for persecution. They have bought so much. The Jewish National Fund, if you go down to this area, has always sold everybody, trees, and for planting that they have invest a lot of money, and a lot of Arabs have sold their land to Jews, have sold their homes to Jews. And everywhere in the world, when you buy a piece of land or when you buy a house, you're allowed to live in it, except when it goes to Jews in Israel. And you show that little piece that they say even the name on the map you cannot see well because the name Israel doesn't fit in. It goes over.
Right.
It is freaking small, but the only, yeah, and then the stories around it. So yeah.
There's so much to talk about. But just to stay on the psychology theme, because um, coming at it from a communications angle, I think that we have to be careful when words are thrown about because someone else might use a word that we assume we know, we think that it's the same definition, and it's not.
Hmm.
Again, using your words, open concentration camp, apartheid state, ethnic cleansing. These are triggering words to get any moral person to respond. They're so triggering that if you don't respond in a moral way, it says you almost feel like you're immoral. But
Yeah.
but we need to slow down and ask, well, how do you know there's ethnic cleansing? Where are you getting the facts from? How do you know it's an apartheid state? Are there slaves? Where, how do you show us? Like, ask questions and really understand, like, open concentration camp. Is there starvation? And if there is, where are the pictures of starving
Now, the
children?
real pictures they have, and the
Where?
fake pictures, you see overly fed women and with
Right.
babies.
Where are the pictures?
Yeah.
So again, just verify your facts, where you're getting them, and just don't assume that you're talking the same language, and ask people to stand behind what they're saying. Because a lot of people are just saying things and they're not standing behind it.
And they
So,
contribute to so much more hate. And now you say this about the ethnic cleansing of the. Nobody realizes that Gaza has a huge border with Egypt, but Egypt doesn't want them. But they have a
right.
tunnel. They have tunnels underneath to Egypt where even trucks can drive through. So they have, I think, 300,000 Palestinians from the Gaza Strip, Gazans, could escape if they paid $5,000 to $10,000 to Egypt, and they could escape to Egypt and they could get out. Nobody asked the question, why do they need to come? Why does it only come in the account of Israel? Because they don't know the history of the Gaza Strip. They don't know that it was given by Egypt to Israel. Yeah, there happened to live people on that, and by then a couple of 100,000 people.
I don't want them.
Now it is 2 million. But it is not Israel's responsibility. They had self-determination. They had Israel dragged out in 2005, 10, 12,000 Israelis that lived there. It was made Jew-free. That's the thing. Gaza was made Jew-free because it took too much for the IDF to protect the Jews living in Gaza. And the IDF was tired of it because you offer people's lives. You sacrifice their lives for keeping Gaza going as it was, and it was given to them in exchange for the in the war thing. No, people don't forget that. People don't know that either, and forget about that. So those 12,000 people had to leave their houses, their homes, had to leave everything, and then they get self-determination. They chose, they voted Hamas in. They voted Hamas in. This is the result. Still, Israel gets the blame. That is exactly the same psychology as blaming the Jews in the Middle Ages when people got that illness from not being hygienic, and the Jews always
Plague, the
wash
Black Plague,
hands before. Say it again.
the Black Plague.
Exactly. They wash their hands more. There's more hygiene in the Jewish laws, in the halacha. So that they got the blame. Okay, thousands of Jews were burned at the stake, families all together. The Jews got all the blame. That concept is so deep in European heads that Jews are this and that and that and that. Jews were not allowed in Europe to have many professions, especially not in Eastern Europe. One of the things they were allowed to do is helping the edelmen, the kings and all that to be financial advisors. If that's the only thing you can do, you become good at it. But that became a blame too because you care too much about money. What people also forget is that if you have money, you can buy your freedom. If you don't have money, you are easier killed. No, that's the same thing. And that's the same thing what bothers me too with the Nazism comparison. Germany, about every, how do you call it? Not Democrat, autocrat. What's the name? We can cut this out. Every dictator, the first
Hmm.
thing they do is taking the arms away from the people. Why? Because then they're vulnerable. So that is already the opposite of what happens today, and that is done. No, I need to stop this thing because this is not.
Maybe that's a reason why they're picking on the IDF. It's an arm too.
Yeah, now the Jews are armed, so yeah. So
So they're like the Nazis.
there's that book of Dara
How
Horn.
dare you protect yourself?
Yeah, people like people like that Jews.
Dara Horn.
There's some truth in Dara Horn, yeah. So yeah,
Right. Who are you to protect yourself? It's really that's what I think Bessel van der Kolk was saying. You know, how dare you want to be alive? And shame on him. Shame on him of being a therapist. How anti-human.
yeah,
How anti-human he really is. And I'm so disappointed in him. I mean, I
yeah,
read his books, I've honored him, and I feel like I feel a sense of disgust when I think of him now. A
yeah,
total
yeah.
disgust.
And you know what? There
Yeah,
are so many more. And there are so many
yeah.
more. I don't like to say to that I don't like to say okay I'm of course open to Jewish clients, but that's because like I don't want to make that preference, right? I have wonderful clients that are not Jewish, but it comes to a point that a lot of Jews don't go anymore in therapy, regardless because they don't know if they can trust their therapist, and it's true,
I,
it is
mhm.
just terrible, and this is somebody said that, and you probably know that too, that anti-Semitism is not our problem, but it's the problem from the non-Jews who are anti-Semitic. They have a problem to resolve in themselves and with themselves. That's all good. That's all good. But if they don't do the work, the results are there. We get attacked everywhere, and there are, I think, the only place to go to in the future, in the near future, the later future, is to go to Israel. And that's not they don't want us, but it's what I just heard in the morning. They expect 3 million Jews to come into Israel. So they need to build more homes and do all that. But that's a bit hard because everybody is almost in the IDF today, right? But the world will get harsher and harsher. Those ideas, if by intelligent people like Bessel van der Kolk, if those ideas are not really looked through and thrown out like that, I have been once in an Gabor Mate, as our famous self-hating Jew that also goes very far with stupid, horrible remarks. Who's a medical doctor? He's not a therapist, but he claims to be a trauma healer. And I read the comments he gets when he speaks bad about Israel. You have no clue. You have no clue. And the most intelligent answer I one time, no, it's not so intelligent, answer I one time got when I was answering a lot of those comments. Then there was a woman, I said, you know what? The Palestinians had, the Arabs, the Palestinian Arabs had, like the Palestinian Jews, they had the chance to have their own state. The whole area was very big, and 77% was given to Jordan. The little piece that was over, and by the British, right? The little piece of it over was divided in two. Part for the Jews, part for the Arabs. The Arabs didn't want it. And then, because the Jews took it, now they get the blame. They didn't claim their own piece. They don't want it because they want the whole piece. They just don't want Jews in the region. And then the argument was that, they got many times offered, even 96% of the Judea and Samaria, what they call West Bank, was offered in exchange for peace. Israel is attacked. By a miracle, they win, get more country, land in their hands, and it is offered in exchange for peace, but they don't take it. Then don't blame Israel. You know what the answer was? Yeah, but it was so little what they offered.
1 second, 77%, was that right? Went to Jordan?
Yeah,
That's a
Transjordanian.
brand new country, 77%. There was a place for Palestinian Arabs to go.
Yeah.
By the way, there were so many refugees after the Second World War. All of Europe was awash with refugees. There are times in his history, there were also 750,000 refugees of all Jews that were coming out of the Middle East. 700, it's the same picture.
850,000, yeah.
Sorry, 850,000,
Yeah.
not to mention the millions of refugees. So 850,000 from here. And then all of Europe is refugees. The refugees are a part of, almost like life, or we're, especially Jews, are kicked out of everywhere. And so this is the one little homeland. That's it. There is no, but also, at least, I hate to say this, but I'd rather be a refugee than not be alive.
Yeah.
I mean,
Why would
if
you
I
hate
have
to
to
say
part with
that?
everything,
Yeah.
no, I'm saying this because, at least you can rebuild somewhere. You've got the entire Middle East. It's
There's almost
huge.
at 45.
Jews
No.
have to be squished in this little at 65 kilometers. It's
Yeah.
tiny. It is so tiny.
And
It's
Arabs
almost
have
uninhabitable down below the second half. It's hard. It's really
Arabs,
hard.
there are 54 Arabic countries or 56 Arabic countries. How many more? And Europe has a lot of Arabs too. 7 million of Syrian people have been absorbed in other countries, but we don't barely want to have Palestinians. Well, I imagine that also why, because most of them are Hamas. People that think a bit through realize they're not the innocent Palestinians that we always like to talk so nicely about. It is the Hamas, Hamas, Hamas. Well, we get a little bit to the end of our conversation. We will continue about one of the topics next time, Leah. So, what we usually do, what is your anti-Semit of the week? Guess who?
Well, I'm sorry. We both have to. Sorry, I have to throw Bessel Van de Koch under the bus. Sorry. Forgive me. We can both do it.
Yeah.
I'm just so disappointed. I think he gets a double walk of shame this week. It is so disappointing. I really almost feel like crying because I feel really betrayed. I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I just, I can't, but it says something about the mental health field. They're not so mentally healthy
Yeah.
as maybe we thought they were, you know? They're
Yeah.
harboring like
Don't
that.
open that box. That's another box of Pandora we can really talk about.
Yeah.
The way things go and the arrogance, and we know it all, right?
Yeah.
And it's just very sad. Yeah. So I can be very quick. I have the same one. But he stands, he represents what a lot of other therapists are thinking. And it is what you said, so true. He didn't do his own research and healing within himself.
No.
And a lot of therapists that I know haven't done that either. You can become a therapist without doing all that work on yourself. And you cannot be only a clinical therapist because your heart is with that too. You carry your own trauma and your own things in it. And you need to learn to separate that. But if you can talk like this, I have had Palestinian clients and I could work with them very well. If they wanted to murder Jews, I would not work with them, of course. And many of them want to kill Jews, so I will be careful. But I have nothing against a Palestinian person that I see in America.
Absolutely
That
not. People
that
are people.
But honestly, yes, but there is another thing to it. We have, and that is a bit ignored today with the open borders ideas. We are tribal people. We are people that are come from our own group, and Jews are attacked for being tribal people. But when Palestinians are tribal people, it's okay. When a Palestinian here in America is angry, it's okay because they defend it. But it is such a twisted way of thinking. But people go for their own group they belong to. It could be even your soccer club you feel so connected to, or your church. We are tribal people because you see that with the cliques. You see it if you help people go together, flock together. It is what biologically given, I think. But that tribal thinking, like what I explained in the beginning about Germany and the Netherlands, Germany gets biggest part of the blame. But all the other countries, they had their own thing, and who did really the self reflection there and took responsibility. Now, time for something nice. Our hero of the week.
Hero. My hero is Nikos. I'm going to butcher this last name. Sotirakopoulos. Sotirakopoulos.
Say it a few
He
times
is
fast.
he's from Greece, and I found him on YouTube this morning how he details his journey from being a really big anti-Semite to being, I wouldn't say a lover of Israel, but really appreciating Israel's fight for the right to exist, as if, to have freedom for its citizens, and a multicultural society within Israel. And so he did that first by seeking history and facts. He studied the map of the Middle East. He started there. He never questioned anything until he opened the map one day, and he describes it as a process. It wasn't overnight, but he was a hardcore reading Protocols of the Elders of Zion. I think that was the one.
Oh,
um,
yes.
yeah, and he realized that he started to think for himself, and that is how he got out of it. And he says it's never too late. There is hope for people that hate and can learn, go over the history. So I was really encouraged by him because
That
I
is
felt
such a
better.
heartwarming story. And he's the
Yeah,
opposite. He's the opposite of Van der Kolk, in a way,
yeah.
because he's
He healed
doing
himself.
self reflection. He's
Yes,
looking in it. He's educating himself.
right.
He's openly admitting it. Now, we have interviewed several people, and like Michael, the Coptic Kapara, he had the same
Yes.
story and became even more, he became openly a Zionist, as some more do. And I have the utmost respect for people like that who really do are so honest. Well, you stay in the picture. My hero of the week is the Omega Institute that
Mm.
invited Bessel van der Kolk to speak. And I hope many, many more institutions will have the integrity to do that too. And it's
Yes.
not because I like to cancel people, but if you give too much place to go on with this kind of beliefs, you Amnesty International had a beautiful poster. If words lead to killing, if you don't work with the words, and that is the thoughts. If nobody acts about that, then the killing come. And I'm not happy today at all with Amnesty International, but that poster that I had in my room 100 years ago, that poster was very insightful. If you don't listen to the words, people die. That was a bit freely translated as
If
that.
you don't listen to the words, people
Yeah.
die.
You say so many people. Yeah. Now, Bessel van der Kolk is not saying, "Oh, let's kill Jews," but that's one of the few steps that comes from it. The
Right.
moment you make a wrong comparison, and at the same moment you allow to happen that Jews are taken out there, they're not going to that group, they're excluded there. There's a whole list in that article too, where oh, you're Jewish, you cannot be. Jewish students had an Israeli student had to stand in a corner one time in a college class, or sent out of the class, or
Where? In
in
Holland?
America,
Oh, of
there's
course. Okay.
so many examples like that, and that is accepted by everybody. That's how it starts, and then you get beat.
Segregation.
And then you get beat up, and from that comes that. I have a very terrible example that shows that so well, and I don't remember her name. I maybe Dora Halimi in France. She was a Holocaust survivor, and she had in her home Jewish symbols like the menorah, maybe a mezuzah, whatever she had. She was her neighbor came in who is a Muslim and got in, and he was stoned. He had I don't know what he had taken, and he saw the Jewish things, and that aggravated him so badly. He sat in court. He tied her. He put her on fire, and that when he was burning her partially, he threw her over the balcony. She was in a wheelchair. Imagine how vulnerable people can be. This is where it leads to, right? He went to court because they caught him. They didn't give him punishment. He didn't get anything to do. Why? Because it's understandable when a Muslim sees those things, he gets so aggravated, and because he had taken these drugs, we cannot blame him. So he got no punishment. That is a moral example, or let's say that's an example that lacks 100% morality. Because also taking drugs is your own responsibility. And that has been a big scandal in France. Like the chief rabbi of France says, there's no place for Jews in France. Out, get out, go, go, go. We are again in that situation. Where can we go? Well, there's one
So,
country.
yeah, it was Dora. What was her last name? Dora
I think I can find it for you. Dora
Salimi?
Halimi. You
Halimi, I
can
think I
find
remember
it.
that.
French woman, Holocaust survivor,
That's okay.
brutally
So,
murdered. Yeah,
hmm I remember there was 4 steps: segregation, humiliation, degradation,
murder.
extermination.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
sad thing. But we all, the world should know, like the alarm bell should ideally be going off in everyone's head. Like, wait, we've gone down this route before, and we've
If
paid for it. The world's paid for it. The world suffered. The world lost a lot too.
if people don't want to
Not
look
just
into
us,
it,
the world.
it's pure anti-Semitism too. And if you if you exchange the word Jew for Muslim today, whoa, what a different things. And it is, but it's the same like the Druze. They have been slaughtered lately, horrifically,
That's right.
horrifically. Didn't hear much, no demonstrations, nothing. The stories, what they did to them was like equal what they did in the Far Hook in 1941 in Iraq, right? Horrific. Yeah, okay. Well, we were ending with
Yes.
a nice note. Now we are back to the horror. Anyway, I'm very grateful for our conversation. Thank you so very much.
Yes.
Thank you for watching. If you like what we talk about, we have many beautiful videos. Please subscribe and follow us for more. Take care. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye. We have a small request, and you probably know what it is about. But we have this very interesting situation that 91% of our returning viewers do not subscribe, but they are returning. So they must like it. And that would be great if that is you, if you will be so kind to subscribe, eventually leave a like if you like the video, or even leave a comment, that's even nicer, or have a request. That would be great to hear from you. But please support our work by subscribing. Thank you so very much. That would be such a favor to us.